right, welcome.
Welcome
To all you listeners out there, all the people watching, all the people listening. Hopefully we've got a few by now, but
Hey, if not, at least this is good for us.
It's really good for us. Yeah, this is not for y'all, this is for us
This
only.
is for us.
And if you come along in the journey, well, great.
Just gives us an opportunity to share what our mind and share the conversations that we have anyway, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm really finding that doing this once a week, it just truly influences our own growth. You know, I've just seen our own growth in the last, always since we've met and through our depths, but in the last few weeks, it's just been incredible.
For sure, yeah. And it's given us an opportunity to, I guess, just to capture moments in time that would probably never be captured.
Oh yeah. I'm really looking forward to listening back to them actually, and seeing how you were as that person in that time, and if anyone picks up some golden nuggets, well, that's beautiful too.
Yeah, definitely, and it really it sort of goes on to what we're talking about today in this podcast, and that's vulnerability.
Vulnerability, capital V.
Capital V, opening yourself up for everyone to see.
Yeah, and it's definitely, we can only speak for men because we are men, and it's a very tough subject for men, not only, but, to find the depth of vulnerability and to find the true strength in it.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, when you do look at it, it is a little bit more challenging for me to be vulnerable, because there's a stigma around it, right? There's a need to be hard, a need to not show your emotions, and we're never really taught how to do it, or if we are highly emotional, there's always that idea that there must be something wrong with you, right?
Yeah, and if you're what would you say, a more emotional kid, definitely in my generation, people would pick on you, call you a homo, all that sort of kind of more, stigmatized things that come with ability to show emotion. And that's going to build up some massive shadow and defense mechanisms for your own life.
Definitely, and that's, I suppose, for me personally, that is what happened to me. I was an extremely emotional kid. I was always a little bit more empathetic. I was always a little bit more tapped in. I was a lot more expressive with my emotions, predominantly anger, because I didn't actually have an outlet to be able to express myself. So when it got to a point where I didn't know what to do or say or how to deal with something, anger was the thing that I fell back on.
And that's just a protection mechanism for the actual real emotions and that are sitting underneath it.
Yeah, definitely. The sadness, the frustration, all of that.
All of it. And it's also, I just made up a word. It's obviously something that needs to be talked about, because there is so much strength in able to feeling your emotions. There is so much power in true depth of vulnerability, feeling the depth of love, feeling the depth of sadness, sorrow, grief, rejection, and not becoming it, but allowing it to move through you and letting yourself just feel whatever needs to feel, but in a safe environment, and creating that safeness. I'm creating words left, right, and center here today. Creating that safety within your body for you to be able to go through what you need to move through.
I've got two questions for you. Let's start with the first one. So, what is vulnerability to you?
Vulnerability to me is, this is just for me personally, because this is my own journey. For me, it's becoming softer. For me, it's getting more in touch with my feminine energy, being more in flow. But vulnerability to me is saying the words that need to be said sometimes. Showing up when it's hard. Holding people and yourself to an account. Going to the depths of truth, capital T and lowercase t, within yourself, within your communication, within your actions, sharing absolutely where you are at, no matter how weird or how your brain, your egoic brain wants you to say no, just hold it in because you can't be shown to be crying in front of your brother or your friends or and it's ultimately laying anything out on the line that you feel is aligned and going all in on your pleasure, going all in on your dreams, your goal, your love, you know. And so vulnerability to me is all-encompassing truth.
Beautiful. Second question. What's stopped you from being vulnerable in the past?
Oh yeah. There's a big. Well, I've been unpacking that for a long time. I came, I had beautiful, loving parents, but my dad is a very should guy. When I was growing up, he was a cop. Very right and wrong. This is the law. A real stand-up citizen. Really, really is. But when it came to the way that he parented me, it's no, you should. This is how it should be done. This is the right way. And I'm a little creator actually, and so I feel like that stifled me in my ability to be able to drop in vulnerably, to actually ask for when I needed help. Now, Dad would always say, hey, look, come to me for anything. And he was totally open about that. But I never learned how to actually express and feel my emotion because I never had it around me. My mum, bless her heart, bless her soul, she went through some deep traumas in her life, and so she was always quite erratic when I was growing up. So I had unsafety. I've realised I had unsafety growing up within myself, and so if I did feel something, I remember one time. I don't exactly know what was going on, but I remember I got so angry, frustrated, sad and upset, I think, about my parents. I must have been about 12. Something was happening, and I just remember I went into my room, I literally flipped the mattress up on the bunk bed, and I went and sat in my closet, in my wardrobe, and shut the door, and I was just in there hiding. And because I just didn't know how to process my emotion. I didn't know how to feel. I just had all of this, I hadn't been taught how to. And then I remember I was just sitting in there in the dark. And then I remember my parents, my dad came and opened the door, and he just said, hey, look, it's all okay. And then it just never got dealt with. There was things in my growing up, it just never got dealt with. And then the next thing was, we're going down the road to our neighbour's place. We'd like you to look after your sisters. And so I felt elated because that was the first time. It was actually the first time I got to have the responsibility of looking after my sisters. So again, it came from that position, that situation, straight into like, okay. And so what I was learning was just fending for myself. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, let's create responsibility for yourself. Let's go out and do your own thing. And after all the deep work that I've gone through and done, you come through the other side and you go, your parents just parented you to the level they were at, and that's okay, and I unconditionally love them, and that's beautiful and fine. But it's these moments that we have in our upbringing, and it's really this is the spiritual work, right? It's just the reflection on your own past experiences and things like that of how they've maneuvered you to be who you are, and what are you dragging through. So why wasn't I able to to experience or create vulnerability, it was I felt unsafe. I felt unsafe. I wasn't taught how to. And it was just kind of, dust off, pick up, keep going. It's okay, just keep going, And so I developed that inherent independence. I mean, I left home when I was 15, got my first flat, and then I left the country at 17, and then I just kept hopping around, for a long time. And at that time, it was amazing, and it's great, and it pushed me through to different places, and I got to experience the world. But ultimately, and I spoke about on a couple of podcasts ago about that deep commitment wound that I've been tackling and facing off with, and how I've just always been the big dreamer on my own, regardless if I am in a partnership or friendship or whatever ship I'm in. It's like, no, because that was my safety protocol to go, cool, I don't have to be completely present here because I'm going to just create this next big thing on a future that's not created for my ego self to be able to feel safety there. And
it's like always creating a way out.
Always creating a way out, and I've massively taken the head off that, like again, just in the last few weeks in that ayahuasca ceremony I did last weekend, that was just the most powerful one I've ever done, and true surrender. And there you go. Again, that's a word that's coming up for me. In vulnerability is surrender to life, surrender to love, surrender to the divine guidance. So yeah, I reflecting back and through my work and journaling and various other breathworks and modalities. I just wasn't taught how to be vulnerable, and I never got shown how there's strength in it. I've had to develop it through the inner work now, and better to do it now than never, right? So
I mean, I personally think it's something that you're always going to be working on.
Always.
Because you'll forever be working on it, because you're always going to be putting out yourself in new situations that will probably take a deeper level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
The deeper you go, the deeper you unpack things, the more that comes up, the more situations you put yourself for, the higher you reach, the more you expect. And so you're having to put yourself in more challenging situations that bring out more opportunity to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and for me it's love. The depth of love that I can feel and give and receive. I just want to continually expand that. I mean, that's the expansion of God, right? That's the expansion of the universe.
Eros.
That's the Eros. That is Eros in its finest form. Is the experience we're having here, is the experience as God, of God, as love, and that's Eros. So yeah, vulnerability. It's a big subject, and definitely where I see the payoff in that is when, and this is after workshops we've run and clients and generally just being out and about, when I have, and you would experience this too, when you have a female woman come up and just say, hey, I feel really safe in your presence, I feel really safe for you facilitating, or just really safe in the conversation that we've had. And it makes me sad. It makes me sad that actually has to be a compliment. It makes me sad that it's such a thing that women aren't safe or feel so. Well, there's an innate program that's developed in them through their own experiences that ultimately they've got to compliment when they feel safe around a man. Yeah,
for sure. And that, as you say, like that's saddening. It is saddening, because all people deserve to feel safe all the time. But unfortunately that isn't the case, because of situations that happen, hurts that are placed upon people. So yeah, I feel you in that. Because it does happen in workshops when people come up and talk to you afterwards, and you're like, okay, I appreciate that, thank you, I'm going to take that on, but at the same time it's like, why is that?
Yeah. And that's ultimately a massive divine driver for me too, is just protect that beautiful goddess feminine essence, the goddess that is the beautiful female. The IASIT last weekend, You know, like I had this one moment where I just felt the full pain of the divine feminine all in one, and it was just painful. And I just surrendered to it, and I felt it, and it was beautiful and painful at the same time. And it was just show up, show the fuck up, you know, show up, be safe, be protecting, just be a king, you know, embody that energy. And it's not, and everyone around you will feel safer. And the ones that don't, they'll eject themselves from your life. You know, it's not their path, not their journey. And I think it's very important, you know, to firstly understand what you think vulnerability is, what you feel vulnerability is, and practice it. It's a practice. It's when, and it can be with everyone. It doesn't have to just be in an intimate relationship. It could be at work, you know. If somebody's doing something that really bugs you, or, you know, and you just, or anything, your boss is being a certain way, you know, like, this is where vulnerability comes in to go, hey, can we please have a conversation, sitting down, understanding the tone of your voice, coming from a place of openness, authenticity, and just speaking the words that need to be said. Otherwise, you will build resentment within yourself. And resentment is a nasty emotion.
For me, the opportunity to be vulnerable arises when I feel a contraction in my body. Like I feel a pullback, I feel a close off. And then from there you have to choose to either sit with that or make a decision in that moment not to be vulnerable, because sometimes it can be challenging, sometimes it's not needed, sometimes it might actually put you in a dangerous situation to be vulnerable, because it could trigger something else or whatever. But for me it's that I feel a contraction within me, but then there's the option to choose, do I work through this, or do I allow this contraction to consume me?
And that goes hand in hand with that little part that wants to keep us small too, right? It's seeing that and understanding where that comes in, because there's vulnerability and expression, true expression of yourself. You know, definitely. If you want to show up and you want to wear something crazy, you want to do something cool, you want to go out, you want to really express yourself, you want to express yourself in words and poems. And, you know, we're living in a digital age. You want to express yourself on your social media how you want to, regardless of how you think people are perceiving you. You know, all of that is vulnerability. You know, it's just dropping into your true self, your unique self, right?
It's essentially just allowing you to be you.
Just you to be you, absolutely. And just doing it, you know, feeling that fear and just going, yeah, I'm going to put that post up. I'm going to put those words up. I'm going to create those words. I'm going to put up a picture. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to dress. I'm going to dance. I'm going to, you know, sunbathe naked outside, you know, like, it's, you know, get that butthole sunning in.
Well, it's all fear and judgment, realistically, right? It's not about, it's about, potentially if I do this thing or say this thing, how will this person either react, respond, or perceive me afterwards? So for me personally, that's actually why, like, vulnerability for me is still something that I challenge, I struggle with. Fully expressing myself is still something that I struggle with, because all throughout childhood, like all throughout primary school, high school, preschool, I was bullied. And so there's like a fear, trusting other men, because it was predominantly men or other males that would bully me. And two, the fear of rejection, the fear of, if I actually do show up as myself, how is that going to be perceived? Because based on past experiences, my body, my ego, my mind, my nervous system has created a story around that. If you show up as yourself, people aren't going to like you, so it's not safe to show up as yourself.
Yeah, that's a big one, eh? The bullying. Definitely it has a massive impact.
Huge.
On your existence, on your life.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
and you bring it through. There's a depth to the process of vulnerability, right? You know, being vulnerable makes you stronger, because when you're truly vulnerable, you're changing your own paradigm. because it's the thing that you know that is your unique self that you're tapping into, rather than your egoic self, you know. So you're ultimately actually de-separating yourself.
What do you mean by de-separation?
Well, you're not in your egoic self, which creates a separation of all of your body, your mind, your spirit. You're actually moving into your unique self, which is, there's no other thing in this entire universe at any other time will ever have the same experience that you are having, you as Ryan being, doing your Ryanness.
For sure.
And so when
and that can be even based on who I perceive my Ryanness to be in that certain time moment.
Exactly, yeah. Right? And so going into vulnerability, that's actually, you're creating less separation within yourself, because you're actually coming from a deep place of your unique self, right? Because it's your truth, regardless of what you're doing. It's your expression. It's your love. It's your pleasure. It's your divinity that you are tapping into. And that's the universe. That's God. That's love. That's true power. That's true strength. That's dissolving the separation between your old selves, your trauma selves, your egoic self, and pulling you into your unique self.
It's very, very true. And that ultimately is it, right? That's ultimately the journey of all work, and every tool is coming back to the self. The journey to health, the journey of everything is a journey back to self, the unconditioned self, and understanding who that is. And understanding that can change. It's not always going to be one separate thing, right? Just because through past experiences, even though traumas can be trauma and can be challenging to work through, and we can overcome them and no longer be consumed by them, there can always be an imprint, right? Like that experience is still going to be there. So that experience may be part of yourself, as long as it's not something that limits you. If there's not a limitation, it can actually still be something that we utilize, because it can be a story that we use to actually empower who we are.
Well, it's ultimately understanding what your essence is, and bring your essence through all your different characters, or in all your different moments. Because when you've really tapped into understanding what your essence is, and you can be any character you want, but you're still going to be the Ryanness, the Michaelness, because that's ultimately your unique self that is having this beautiful life experience.
Yeah, I agree. So that idea of essence, like that potentially could lose people. What is your essence?
So your essence is, it's always cultivating, right? Your essence is your essence. It's your inner id, if you want to go down the Freudian track. It's the deeper unique self of you. Who are you? What are you bringing to the table on this earth? And again, who do you choose to be as well? Who do you want to cultivate and choose to be up? My essence that I bring through is authenticity, is truth. It is unwavering truth. And that's, again, in essence, your own personal value proposition. They're kind of on the same lines, right? How do I want to create in this moment, to create the opportunity of the aliveness of what we're doing, right? And I mean, we're choosing right now our essence. Well, no, we're choosing right now to create based off our essence of our values, right? We're sitting here, my essence is authenticity, truth, and it's like, I will leave nothing on the table when it comes to this podcast. It will always be mostly experiences, pretty much all experiences, because that's I like only talking about what I have experienced and passing that on. I'm not someone who takes an idea, doesn't embody it, but then passes that idea back on. I mean, you can read books and things like that and you can take gold, but then how have I implemented that into my life? Now that's what my lived experiences to now pass on to others. And so cultivating and creating in this moment right here and now, it's like, cool, my essence is that, and it can continually expand and it continually evolve, as everything does as well. And so when I say essence, it means that what are you Who are you? Where are you coming from? Through deep self-inquiry, through lots of inner work, conversations, and showing up as that in the character you are creating within each moment of your life.
I like that. I like that. I suppose for me, essence is, I guess, the flash in the moment of creation. It's who we like. It's who we truly are. It's who we know we are, without other people's ideas or perspective on who we are, or even who we think, or who we think other people think we are. You know, our essence is deeper than that, and it can be challenging to find, because there's a lot of stories that we have to tell ourselves. There's a lot of things that we have to do. There's certain ways in which we have to show up in the world that for a lot of people probably take away from their essence. For most of the population, unless you're truly driven and passionate about your work, you probably find that every day between 9 and 5 you lose your essence, because you're not actually allowed to express what's truly going on. You're not actually allowed to express who you truly are and the conversations you truly want to have.
Do you say not allowed as in an outside influence not allowed, or you're not allowing yourself?
I think it's both.
Okay.
One, you're not allowing yourself, and two, there's certain things that are just not accepted in a workplace or in a society, because if you don't want to go into a workplace and purposely make people uncomfortable just so that you can fall into the idea of needing to be able to express yourself 100% of the time.
Yeah, well, now you're leading down the path of empathy, right?
Very much.
And you're leading down the path of emotional IQ. You know, you are reading the room, you know, because when you are coming from a place of love, you are still going, hey, look, you know, all is love, all is one, right? And it's like, you know, Ram Dass said, you know, love everything, not everyone. And so, you know, you cultivate that depth of empathy, you know, and so this is the balance between being your true self, your unique self, bringing your essence, but then still understanding the environment, the other people, creating your empathy, as well as and still always coming from a place of love. And when you feel judgment, you just go, well, what am I judging? How are they mirroring me? And what am I judging of myself? You know. Yeah. But then ultimately, some people are just fucking assholes too, you know, and you can just tell them to jog the fuck on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You know, it's beautiful to come to one place of love, but do you know what? Some people are just fucking assholes.
Well, but that's vulnerability as well, right? Seeing when people are being fucking assholes and expressing it, you know, allowing yourself or giving yourself permission to create a boundary around just not accepting or allowing that person to be an asshole.
Yeah. And it's not coming from a reactive, toxic emotion.
Yeah.
It's coming from a place of, okay, I'm getting very, very reacted here by this person. Maybe it's you know, you've worked with them for a while, and that's an embedded essence of theirs that they've chosen to embody, or they haven't tapped into their own essence, and this is the cultivation of the personality that they've created, and this is how they want to show up as a protection mechanism against all their own stuff. And when you feel that, it's just going, hey, look, jog on, you know, but not bursting, not toxically bursting. And this is the capturing again. This is where we go back to vulnerability. When you're vulnerable, you're understanding and feeling your emotions more and more and more. So you become less and less a slave to them. You understand that it is just a moving part of the ecosystem from the brain into the body, and then it helps you see points where you need to do more work on yourself.
Well, our triggers are always our greatest guides for where work needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you a question now. When is the time that you feel that you've been the most vulnerable?
The time I've been the most vulnerable. Well, I'm not really landing on anything.
okay, not the time the most then, let's reframe that question. When is something, a past
Or like
experience?
what situation?
Yeah, where have you truly delved into your own vulnerability?
I don't know. It's a... For me, personally, I delve into my own vulnerability when I say what needs to be said, even though it's challenging to say it.
Yeah.
And for me personally, that's still really challenging. And I probably don't allow myself to fall into vulnerability in that situation as much as I possibly could. But for me, that's when I allow myself to be the most vulnerable, because it opens myself up for judgment.
Judgment of what?
Perceived judgment from other people.
Okay.
That's normally what I find, because it's never as bad as what you think it's going to be.
Never.
You
know, I'll put a little footnote here. I saw true vulnerability in you. You know, the last 3-4 weeks of me really going into the fucking depths of all my everything. And, you know, there were days that I was just working through my stuff and I was just crying in tears. And you would just hold the space for me, brother. You know, you would just sit there and you would allow me to move through, and it allowed me to move deeper because I was just being witnessed by someone who I love and, you know, and a true brother, you know. But I couldn't have got to the depths of the vulnerability and the movement of what I needed to move through without your true depth of vulnerability, you know. And so I think because that's a bit of a superpower of yours that you don't quite see that. You always see, well, what's the hardest bit of me trying to get to vulnerability? But actually true vulnerability for you is the ability to be able to actually just sit and be and hold space, you know, and just allow, well, I'll speak from first experience, just allow me to move through my stuff. And that helped me beautifully grow, you know, like, because I mean, I've never, well, earlier years would have never sat in front of a male friend and just broke down and allowed myself to just be messy and sloppy and crying and ugly crying and all the good things. But
well, I suppose definitely. And I think I tried to think a little too deep on the answer to that question, because I suppose I do allow myself to be vulnerable a lot, but I guess I'm just looking for the areas where there isn't the vulnerability. And that's to it. And I suppose even I'm just unpacking that as we go through. Realistically, it's like that level of vulnerability is really just my own ego, because quite often those conversations that I think need to be said are really just based around the way in which I perceive things should be, and when other people aren't showing up in a way that I think they should show up. So is that an opportunity to be vulnerable, or is that actually me just being like, okay, cool, this person isn't doing that, I should say something, but I don't want to say something, there'll be conflict if I do say something, but maybe the thoughts that are ruminating potentially probably don't even need to be said.
You just touched on something there that I think you just passed over. Not having conflict.
Yeah.
Does conflict scare you?
Yeah, because that's a lot of it. And when you're actually talking about it, conflict came into my mind. Yeah, so conflict.
Well, man, if you were getting beaten up for most of your school life, of course you're going to be afraid of conflict.
Oh, definitely.
You know, it's not something you'd ever want to go back to, because there was such an unsafety there.
Yeah, for sure. And so the one of the reasons why conflict is so challenging is because when, in those moments that I was getting bullied, my dad told me, if someone bullies you, if someone says something to you, just hit them. And so that's what I did. I just hit them. But I would always be the one that got in trouble.
Yeah, because it's a toxic reaction, so it's more over the top, right? So that's what got seen. It's funny, we both had the same fatherly advice. My dad
God damn
said,
it.
if someone's going to come and fight you, hit them first and hit them hard. And, wow, you know, if that's not, you know,
How did that
depth of
turn out?
masculinity that we got.
God damn it, Marty. But I mean, it would have been the same advice, and realistically, he wouldn't have had any idea. And so at the time, it was probably decent advice. And even though it was like that idea of hit them hard, hit them first, it was probably more just like his way of saying learn to protect yourself.
Well, but it's also their way of trying to teach us to be safe, right? Because it's their loving way of going, hey, I don't want you to get hurt. It's a wild ride out there, especially my dad being a cop, you know, like he dealt with the scumbags of the earth, you know. So his way to teach or impart wisdom to me to try and be safe wasn't, oh yeah, Mike, go and you know, just walk away or whatever. It's no, get in there, get it done, and get it first, so you don't get injured, or it minimizes the risk of you getting injured. So this is where, when you can get to a level of the work and you can actually go, hey, look, yeah, that was an experience that formed me here. Now I need to move through that program, that trauma. But now you see it as everyone's coming from their own loving perspective, you know, like our dads weren't telling us to do that to get into fights. It was actually their only way to try and, that's their loving way of how we, or how they could impart wisdom onto us.
It was the advice that they thought was needed.
Yeah.
So definitely conflict can be a challenging one.
Yeah.
It can be a challenging one. But then at the same time, I don't know whether or not the conflict is real, or if it is just a perception.
Well, I mean, the fear of conflict is going to be a lot worse than the actual conflict because it's happening in the moment, right?
For sure. And realistically, the only conflict I'll face now is a conflict of words.
Oh,
more
yeah.
than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if anyone tried to fight me, you know, I would just be walking away.
Oh, for sure.
You know, there's, you know, now you're going to come across, you may come across your chance where you've got some psycho or something like that, and it's like, okay, now you've got to tap into your warrior, right? Because that's a protection thing. But
14 years of boxing, so
yeah,
I'm sure I'll be fine.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's again just making the judgment calls in the moment about where it's at. But yeah, it's all walk away. Just walk away. You know, like, why would you ever get into it with someone just to try and, I don't know, get over the top of them because they're coming at you? It doesn't compute with me. I mean, my younger self, I was always in fights. You know, got taken home by the cops and different things like that.
But it's the thing you did when you were a child, realistically.
Yeah, but even that statement's just an acceptance of that's how it was, right? You know, I mean, it can be changed.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
You know, it can be changed. It can be parented out of people. It can be, if you offer safety in yourself and safety to choose and love and all of that guidance, you know, you don't have to be a 15-year-old fighting on the street.
I'm going to challenge that. I don't agree.
Okay.
I don't agree, because I think there is healthy levels of conflict, and I feel as men growing up, we should get into fights.
Did you ever play rugby?
Yeah.
It's right there. You can have it in healthy competition.
Yeah.
You can have it in healthy outlays rather than fist fighting each other on the streets and turning to chaos. You know, you can have a controlled mechanism like sport. You know, I mean, that's you can put as much aggression as you want, and
so you're saying no conflict outside of
no.
is
I'm not
healthy.
talking about conflict. I'm talking about fighting.
Okay.
Conflict, you're always going to have conflict. That's how you grow. You're going to have arguments with people. It's just the depth into a fist fight.
I can see where you're coming from, and I can see where you're saying that it can be. Well, it is a negative thing, but for me personally, I feel there's a primal nature to it, and I feel like that will never be something that you can totally rid, because you lose an essence of masculinity. Yes, can be extremely negative, because especially if you're going out for looking for fights. But I feel there is a primal urge and nature within us to embrace that physical conflict, to like look someone in the eyes and I guess express yourself in that way, protect yourself in that way. Mm.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that it can be done in healthier ways. It can be done through martial arts. It can be done through
Oh, for sure.
through rugby. You know, like and you will grow from that too. You know, you're not going to grow by someone king hitting you on the side of the head because you get into a fight at 15 and you're smacking your head on the ground.
For sure, I never said that. That's not what I was alluding to. It's not what I was alluding to, because that's two completely different things.
Well, I'm talking about fighting in general, just street fighting.
Okay, we can agree to disagree.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel there's a definite primal urge in nature there, but that just might be me, because for me, boxing, and that was and is still a beautiful outlet.
Yeah.
Although done in a beautiful way, and actually as I learned to fight, I actually never really got into fights afterwards, because I guess there was a knowing that you can protect yourself.
Exactly. When you know you've got something, you don't have to use it, right?
For sure.
It's but I mean, what advice, you know, would you give your son if you had a son right now?
If I had a son right now, I would say, when it comes to conflict, first use your words, and if it's necessary and to protect yourself, physical force can be utilized.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Absolutely.
Because I would never tell him to back down a fight or from an encounter or a fight that was, I suppose, justified.
How do you justify it?
I think you know in the moment.
If you've got a 13-year-old brain, do you know?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a primal urge. It's something primal within us.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'm not. Yeah, cool. Great advice. What about your daughter? What advice would you give a daughter now? If you had a daughter.
In conflict? What advice would I give my daughter? I would probably give her the same advice, because I had two sisters that knew how to protect themselves, and that was awesome, because they always knew how to protect themselves, so that they wouldn't, I suppose, back down from conflict. They would use words, but if they needed to, they would protect those around them, and predominantly protect me.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it was merely through my uncle just teaching them how to punch. That was it, and that was enough for them to know how to protect themselves.
And even that essence of knowing, you know, like it just can make you feel much more confident. But I mean, for females and males, you know, it's a different type of conflict, isn't it? I mean, you listen to lots of Jordan Peterson and all the studies that they've done on, you know, it's gossip, it's innuendo, it's backhand talking, it's exclusion from friendship groups, you know, like that's it's emotional, destabilizing, you know. I've got Bella who's 7, you know, and I just listened to some of the things about what's going on already at 7 years old, and it really does boggle. It's
things we didn't deal with till we were 17.
Oh wow, it's a different world, and it's moved so fast, you know, and so.
So what advice would you give to your son?
What would I give to my son? I would tell him to walk away in any chance.
Walk away.
Yeah.
Every situation.
In any chance. If there was a chance to walk away, you walk away. Any chance. There are too many times that I was involved in different things that turned so sour and so ugly, but there were chances to walk away, you know. And
what if when he walked away, that's when he got king hit?
But you can always talk about the what ifs.
Yeah, but we can talking about the what ifs.
I guess. No, I was still giving the same advice.
Backing away is always better than walking away.
100%.
Never take your eyes off your opponent. Never. Back away.
Yeah, so just get out of there if you can. It's never worth it. It's never worth it. But ultimately, the advice I would give him is learn a martial art. Learn a martial art, and from a young age, you know, I would give him the advice to be able to absolutely embody a warrior if the time comes. And if the time comes to battle and the time comes to fight, then you are equipped and you are armed to do it properly.
You'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Absolutely. You know, and I believe that's masculinity, that's kingship. It's the ability to be able to tap into that when you need to, and then outside of that, there's no need for it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
So that's the advice I would give. I would give my son if I had one right now. I'd say just back away any chance you can. But ultimately, if it comes to you, it's on, you know, and you dial in, because ultimately there are some, what would you say? There are some psychotic people out there, and you never know whose path you're going to cross.
For sure. And I think if you were to teach your kids and let them have an understanding of trauma and the way in which that works, and quite often the people that are bullying you are also getting bullied at home, or are trying to fight with you, are potentially getting abused as well, and they're just using you as an outlet.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when you can see and when you can look at it from that perspective, it gives you a greater understanding just of the human condition as a whole.
Yeah, and that's where the teachings at home can come in, right? You know, I mean, I've taken Bella for Rebirth. You know, I've breathworked her, you know, when she was 6, and you know, I'll continue to do that throughout her life, and teach meditation, teach intrinsicness, teach inwardness, you know, teach safety in the home, love, intimacy, affection, all the openness, the vulnerability of all of that, you know, and that's going to make your child grow up and, well, absorb and grow their EQ, their IQ, their mana, their spirit, their confidence and everything, because it's all being shown and taught and learned from there. And ultimately, as we all know, you know, we attract what we vibrate, right? So if you're ultimately imparting all this wisdom and you know, taking your kids to martial arts or a solid sport or something that they're into and passionate about, and cultivating that practice as well as practices in the home, they're not going to attract those types of kind of people overall in general, right?
Those people are still in the world though.
But 100% they are still in the world. But it's ultimately they won't put them into that level of people and group friends and things like that, because they will just have other people who are kind of there. So you're ultimately already mitigating that risk for that just by helping themselves cultivate who they are at any age, teaching them how to feel emotions so they can be the calm one, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all extremely valid. For me, it's a challenging thing to talk about because I'm yet to have a child, so I emotionally can't connect to it fully, because I'll just be talking to something I know nothing about.
Do you want to have a child?
Definitely. Definitely. I look forward to being a father, and I look forward to reflecting on it in that way, because I'm sure opinions and the way I see the world and purpose and everything will change in a moment when I look into that little boy or girl's eyes.
Oh, it just opens up something so deep and primal in you. I remember when my daughter was born, she came straight on her mum's chest, and it was the first time I had this instant love for something outside of myself, and like instantly connected and deep, and my eyes just welled up, and I was just, you know, wow, it was just incredible.
Beautiful, brother. Well, that's true vulnerability is there as well, right?
Yeah, it's cultivating that, you know. When you truly have something to live for outside of yourself, it changes you. It's a higher purpose. It really is incredible, and I can't wait to be an uncle to your beautiful kid when you and Dan have one.
Little guy or girl. The news is downstairs right now. Hopefully she can hear this. Speed up the process a little bit.
Well, have you put parameters, ages? How are you working it?
when it comes to children. So me and Van have discussed that we sort of want to started looking at having kids around the age of 35. So that's in about a year and a half. But at the same time, if it was to happen, it's obviously meant to happen.
Yeah.
Like we've been together in a relationship for over 4 years now. So it's not like something would be like, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That would just be like, okay, cool. This is the time to do it. Let's embrace it.
Well, they chose you.
Well, that's it, right? They
Yeah.
chose us. They chose that moment. Definitely.
Yeah.
So going back to vulnerability, because we've sort of drifted off a little bit. If you were to give someone one piece of advice or someone's like, hey, Mike, how do I be more vulnerable? What advice would you give?
Tell people you love them.
Tell people you love them?
Yep. If you're a guy, when's the last time you told a guy, mate, that you love them?
Interesting, I was having this conversation with a guy at work the other day, and he was like, someone said something, and I said, I love you. And one of the girls was like, oh, what? And the guy was like, no, that's all good, you can tell your mates. He's like, oh yeah, I was at a mate's place, and he was like, oh man, doing something. He's like, oh, I love you, man. And I was like, no, I literally, every time I finish having a conversation with a friend, call up the phone and be like, I love you, man. Because I truly do. And why would you not want to love your friends?
Absolutely. Well,
Like
we say to each other daily.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a great place to start. Tell people you love them.
Oh, because it's always an interesting one. You never know how they're going to receive it.
Yes.
Funny looks.
And you're laying things out, right? And
yeah, for sure.
You've been dating that other person for a while, and it's been sitting there and chalking it up, and it's just, again, it's going into the offering without expecting anything in return. It's just, I love you. And if nothing comes back, then whatever. Feel how that feels, but
yeah, don't say it. Look, waiting for a response.
Yeah. Don't ever hold back. So I think it's a great place to start. Tell people you love them.
Beautiful. For me, if I was to give one piece of advice or talk to people about how they could embrace vulnerability a little bit more, it would be around allowing yourself to have the conversations you want to have.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that might just be simply with your partner. Be like, hey, look, can we just create an environment where we just share openly?
Yes.
And then it actually becomes a safe space or a container for you to be actually practice vulnerability. And you might find the first times that you go to do it, you get all chocked up and you get a little bit afraid. But that's okay, because you're actually in those moments training your nervous system to realize that it actually is safe to be vulnerable. And you're doing it in a beautiful container or environment. And through that, you're just going to, give yourself permission first to be vulnerable. And then when these other moments in life come up, the permission is already there.
Correct. And being able to be witnessed, I think is a big one, right?
Oh, yeah.
Being able to be witnessed in your vulnerability while asking for what you need, what you want, and expressing exactly where you're at. And I'm reading this great book at the moment called Wired for Love, and he talks about creating what's called a couple bubble, and it's creating vows, creating the relationship, making the relationship the higher purpose that you both are working towards. It's the one entity, it's the third entity, if you want to be will, but having that couple bubble openness and learning what each other's attachment styles are, so you understand the questions and then how to obviously maneuver around. So if anyone's listening, I highly recommend it. It's called Wired for Love, and that's exactly what you're talking about. It's just having times that you create to go in together to go, hey, look, this is what I would like to speak about, and just moving through that together and using your ultimate mirror, which is the relationship, to be able to better yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Love it. Sounds like a good book.
Great book. Yeah, highly recommend it.
Beautiful, brother.
Well, I think that's, if you're still listening, we thank you for sticking with us for the journey. So
Yeah. A little tired going to this podcast. It's 9:15 on a Monday evening.
Yes, and well, we're going to have our own beta focus supplement that we're going to be able to tack into. So we'll give a little plug here. So we'll finally sign a manufacturing contract next week. They will be in manufacture. We'll get them probably mid-Feb, but before then we've actually got the manufacturer sending us 30 serving samples of each sleep and focus. So we will have that at our ready. So we will be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for our next one, but sometimes the energy just needs to be a little bit like this for us to actually move through. It's softness, right? It's moving through and allowing just us to feel, and doesn't have to be so peppy, but
yeah, for sure. My brain just works slower when I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for focus, man.
Ooh.
Damn, we had it in the weekend. Oh my god.
Oh,
I was too switched on.
oh, we were switched on. Yeah. I had to go outside and ground myself for a while.
Well, I suppose we did double dose.
No, we 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah.
But you feel it, man.
Ooh.
Oh, you feel it.
Oh,
The alpha GPC, the L-tyrosine, the Bacopa. Oh, the lion's mane.
And the flavour as well.
Oh yeah.
So we can't wait to share it with all of you because it is high quality, high grade, and it will literally shift people's states daily.
Well, that's the thing, you look at a whole lot of other supplements and they're only looking at a very, very small dose, but there is therapeutic doses of nearly every single herb that we're utilising in there.
Yeah,
Good reason.
And we've got it tasting so good.
Oh,
so good.
Some nasty tasting herbs in there, but my God, does it taste delicious.
Oh yeah.
Bacopa, ginkgo, my God, they taste like you're eating roots.
Oh yeah.
But we managed to make them taste absolutely delicious.
And it's all in a powder and it's all soluble.
Yeah.
We had it with warm milk the other day for the first time. That was great. You have it with warm water, cold water. Oh, you can have it with anything you want.
Oh, and we can actually have some sleep before bed tonight.
Oh, we can.
Yes.
Ooh,
Sleep's delicious as well, actually, and my God, the balance of kava and the valerian, the passion flower, the chamomile, the L-theanine, the magnesium. My God, does it drop you out of your mind and into your body?
Oh yeah.
I reckon you could probably take, we could do these podcasts on a Monday night at 7 o'clock normally when we do them. Take some focus beforehand, be switched on, come to bed at 9:30. Have a little sip of that delicious green apple, sleep, and you'll be in bed. You'll be asleep before you even hit the pillow, mate.
It's so good, and the thing is, you can take these every day. These are just natural herbs, natural remedies, and the therapeutic dose size we've put in there. It means you can take it every day.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So that's exciting, team. So we can't wait to have those. So, but other than that, we're going to sign out. We love you all. I love you.
I love you too, brother.
Tell someone you love them.
And tell yourself you love you.
Oh yeah.
It's a good place to finish.
A good place to finish.
All right, beautiful people. Have a beautiful week. Have a beautiful life, and we will see you next time.
Ciao.